From over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.
Here we are covering these places for you, Kogi and Bayelsa. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. On the show with me is a governance, politics, and policy analyst, expert as well on the show. He wears many hats. Today he's putting on his governance, policy, and politics hat. And we're talking about these elections. And before the break, he raised a very important point. Some of us who call into Nigeria Info, the most intellectual of us, the most educated of us, who have some power, who have some influence, have not actually wielded that power, have not tried to exert that power over the people whom we have that power. So in our polling units, for instance, those villages where we are from, how many of the people who come to vote in the same polling units that we voted have we actually sat down and spoken to about vote buying? Have we sat down and spoken to about carrying weapons? I want to hear from you. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had a one-on-one conversation with someone at your polling unit? Now, before I come to you on the phones, let's talk to Joshua Rogers. Joshua is in Bayelsa, where Collation is starting. Joshua, hi.
Yeah, Sandra.
Has begun?
Good afternoon. No, about to. They just made an announcement that we start by 2:30 p.m.
Also ready.
Yeah. They said 2 local government areas are ready. That's Sagwama and Brass local government areas.
Why it's taking so long?
No reason was given why it's taking so long. But when I arrived there in the morning, I saw that it was that morning that some people who went to the riverine areas were returning. So I suspect that the distance between those other local government areas and the state capital may have contributed to this delay.
Okay. What's the atmosphere like at the Collation Center?
I didn't hear that. Yeah, people have been sitting here because initially it was announced that the collation will start at 10 a.m. and then a few minutes to 10 you have seen people came here, and then it hasn't started till now. Some are tired, people are stepping out. Well, as you can see from my back here behind, you see there are still some party agents, there are still some observers, but not as many as they were in the morning. But with this announcement now, I believe that people will start coming back in because this is the time they've been expecting.
How are the party agents reacting? What messages have they shared so far about the election, about the process?
For now, the ones that are here said I approached a couple of them, said they would like to see the results the way they are coming in, to see if it corresponds with what they have at the polling unit. At the time, their agent at the unit sent them the results. That was for those who contested the election, but there are a couple of others who only adopted some political parties.
All right, well, we're currently looking at the venue where you're at. We're seeing how scanty it actually is. And we hope that at 2:30 we're going to get back in touch with you. And when we do, hopefully some of the election results have been announced. Joshua Rogers, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay. All right. So you're from the Niger Delta, Chief Oboforibo.
Yes,
why is it that we cannot find a faster way to travel between the riverine areas and the mainland?
Well, we can. we do. Like, let me put it simply.
Okay.
When an LGA chairman needs to go from Brass to Yenegoa to collect allocation, suddenly the waterway is very, very quick.
I see.
But when it's election results that have to come from down the waterway, suddenly it turns into the Atlantic Ocean and you can't make it. And this is just something that's always happened.
Yeah.
The first elections I really experienced were in the Second Republic.
Okay.
NPN versus UPN.
Okay.
And in those days, Bayelsa and Rivers State were still one state, the old River State. And what will always happen is the results will come out from the upland areas of the state first. They'll all be announced, and then towards the night, you now hear, yes, results from the riverine areas are still coming. They are still coming. And the whole idea...
Are they rowing a canoe?
A good question. But so the suspicion has always been, let me just put it very mildly and call it a suspicion. The suspicion has always
Thank you, because,
it has always been that what happens is the terrain is used as an excuse to withhold those results and wait until results from every other place have come out, and so that the parties in control of those riverine areas now know the margin. They now know the lead that each party is in the lead and by how much, and then they now know what result coming from the riverine area will guarantee a victory. And somehow, miraculously, the results from the riverine area are always enough to pull off a victory. So I saw that happen. It happened with Melford Okilo in both his victories in 1979 and 1983. Both times, Okilo was either slightly behind or just barely in the lead before the results from the riverine area of what is now Bayelsa came. And then those results, Okilo overwhelmingly won. And it's the same thing, and you saw the same thing happen 1999, it happened in Bayelsa, 2003. And then even on a national level, there's a reason why River State results always show up very late in a presidential election. So it's one of those games that the politicians play.
Okay, I have to mention, of course, that a few more results have come in from Kogi State. The last results that we shared with you was YIAGA East, and that had the PDP winning at 7,546 votes, with the APC polling 6,735 votes, and the SDP polling 220 votes. Now, in Natasha Atwoti's local government area, that's the SDP gubernatorial candidate who has been in the news a lot because of all the things that has been happening to her while these elections were being prepared for. Her local government is Okehi, and in Okehi we've got 36,954 votes for the APC, 478 votes for the PDP, and 3,095 votes for Natasha Atwoti. I'm sure I'm not saying Okehi right. I'm saying Okehi like an Igbo woman. I'll find out how to correctly pronounce that. Now we're waiting for results from Ajokuta. We're waiting for results from Ankba, from Basa, from Dekina, from Ibaji, and from Ida. But I've told you that there's results out of YIAGA East, there's results out of Omala, there's results out of Okene, there's results out of Ijumu. There's also results out of Olamaboro that has 112,764 votes for the APC, 139 votes for the PDP, and 50 votes for the SDP. Olamaboro is, by the way, the local government area of the incumbent Governor Yahaya Bello. And then we have Mopamuro that has APC polling in 4,953 votes, PDP 3,581 votes, and SDP 95 votes. So there's more results coming, and as soon as they all arrive, we're going to be sharing those with you. We're going to get in touch right now with our guest from TMG. TMG is the Transition Monitoring Group, and we have Mrs. Afolabi joining us very soon, and as soon as she does, we'll join her again in the conversation. Now, can you tell me your thoughts about the overall elections? I know that you came in, Chief Oboforebo, and I threw you right into the questions, but I never did get your impression, call it a review of the entire process so far.
So far, the entire process is, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Basically, we're seeing the same problems, both operational and malicious, if you want to call them that. So we're seeing the same inefficiencies with INEC in places. And when I say that, I'm not speaking in general terms. I'm not saying that the election, INEC has been inefficient everywhere. But INEC has been inefficient enough in enough places that somebody has to point it out and say elections are not rocket science and should be going smoother than this. Materials should be arriving, on time everywhere. We should not have this many cases of late arrival of materials. It just shouldn't happen, especially when, it's only 2 states that are having an election. So the entire logistical force of INEC that is able to run an election in 36 states should be able to do 2 states without having these kind of problems. So that's the first issue we can talk about there. And the same also applies for the security agencies, because we're seeing and hearing all these reports of violence and all these other things, and vote snatching and ballot snatching and vote buying. Even though that's not violent, it is still illegal. So these things should not be happening when we have the entire security, apparatus. So the fact that it's happening enough to be reported is a problem, and it's happening without anybody getting arrested. It's a problem. And so that those 2 things are there, and then so that's the side on the part of INEC and the security agencies. Then of course the fact that the political parties are involved in this, that's also an indictment on them. And then the fact that the voters are selling their votes is also an indictment on them. So all in all, it's just more of the same things we see election after election. And again, nobody has stepped forward to bail the cat. The people who lose the most from all this are the Nigerian people, and the Nigerian people have so far shown themselves ready to accept it. Okay.
Now, you've seen the order from the High Court disqualifying the APC candidate in Bayelsa, and you saw the appeal court stop INEC from obeying the order.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on those rulings?
Well, see, when it comes to election rulings, we have a lot of things that we have to sit down as a nation and agree on. And if we can't do it, of course, all of us, we have our National Assembly there that's supposed to be, making these things clear. We had a ruling in 2007 that has in many ways confused matters. And it's a ruling that came from the Supreme Court when they were handling a case from my state, River State, Amici versus Umea and PDP. Well, I'll get back to that and why it matters here. So now you had the Federal High Court. They heard the case that was brought by Heineken Lokbobiri, who was an APC contender for this election. He lost the primary to, Chief Lion, who became the candidate. Now, so when he lost, he went to court and he said that, look, my party, the APC, did not follow its rules for this primary. And the court looked at it and decided and said, yes, Senator Lokbobiri, you are correct. There was supposed to be a full panel. A full panel was not constituted. The chairman of the panel was supposed to announce the result. It was not, or somebody else that did it. In fact, basically, no rule was followed for this in this primary. So this primary is null and void, meaning the declared winner, Chief Lion, is no longer a candidate. That was the ruling. Now, the ruling is submitted to INEC. And INEC, in fact, their interpretation of the ruling was actually quite interesting. If we can just digress to that for a second.
Okay.
INEC said, okay, the candidate is disqualified, but the party is not disqualified. The party can continue with the election, which leaves the question, okay, what happens when the candidate wins? When the party wins, who becomes the governor? Well, that's a big question. Now, based on that, APC went to the appeal court to stop INEC from removing them from the election. And the appeal court actually said, okay, maintain status quo. It was also based on a ruling that was given by another appeal court earlier in the year when this Heineken Lokbobiri's case was first brought. They said, look, maintain status quo for now until this whole thing is read. Now, in itself, that decision, I can see the merits of it. I think most reasonable people can see the merits.
Okay.
In the sense that it is not clear whether or not the party is disqualified. Now, when I say that, some people listening will say, no, but Chief, why will you say that it's not clear? The party has one candidate and the court has ruled that candidate is not eligible. So doesn't that automatically disqualify the party? But then that takes us back to the case I mentioned at the beginning, Amici versus Umea, where Amici won the PDP primary in 2007 to be governor of Rivers State. The party illegally removed him from the ticket and added Celestine Umea as the candidate who, by the way, did not actually pick a nomination form. Umea went on to contest election and won the general election, was sworn in as governor, while Amici went to court. And then the court ruled that actually Umea never stood the election. The Supreme Court said Umea never stood in the primary, so he can't be the candidate, so he's disqualified. So already the AC and the AC at the time, Tony Princewill, were expecting that this would mean either a fresh election with Amici as the candidate, or PDP is disqualified and the people who came second, the AC, are now giving the governorship. In fact, Amici was asking the court, his prayer to the court was, I need a fresh election where I am the PDP candidate because I have the ticket, I have the flag. But the court, in its wisdom, ruled that no, PDP won the election. It doesn't matter that the person who was the flag bearer for the PDP was an illegal flag bearer. PDP was on the ballot and PDP won. So PDP has the governorship. Now the question is, who in PDP should take the governorship? Well, it should be Amici, since he was the rightful primary winner. So that's how Amici, without ever contesting the general election, became governor of Rivers State. And that ruling, because it came from the Supreme Court, now has the force of law. Anybody coming after that can hold on to that ruling, and that's what Chief David Lyon is holding on to now in Bayelsa. The APC is holding on to that in Bayelsa, that even though our flag bearer, Chief David Lyon, has been disqualified, we as a party are still on the ticket, and according to Amechi versus Umea, the candidate does not matter, it's the party.
Well, we have the chairperson of the Transition Monitoring Group on the show, Abiola Akiode Afolabi. Madam, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so do you have election observers in the field for this election?
Yes, I was actually at Bayelsa.
Yourself?
Yes.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
I just returned to Abuja. My people are still on the field. They're actually at the Collation Center currently. So, getting some of the results and all of that.
What reports have you been getting for both states?
Well, for Kogi, as at yesterday, I think there was a war in Kogi. So we had all manner of reports. Observers were attacked. Journalists were attacked. Even international observers were attacked.
Wow.
So it was as if the war was declared, in Kogi State. And we're asking in Bayelsa, because we are very concerned about Bayelsa, because if you look at the history of elections in Bayelsa, violence is almost always like a character in their election, So, but yes, we had some pockets of violence here and there, but if you compare it to Kogi, it's not by any means what you would expect, because we had actually identified some areas as hotspots in Bayelsa, and we were really watching out for conflict in those areas. So in some of those areas, we didn't really see much conflict. I'm not saying that there was a perfect election, by any means in Bayelsa State. Yeah, but it was better off than if you compare the kind of violence that we saw in Kogi, to Bayelsa.
In the past, we've seen some pretty controversial elections in Kogi and Bayelsa. Is there anything peculiar about these states?
Well, I think it's about the political system. I don't think it's about the people. When we entered into Bayelsa, we actually met, the people. We spoke with the citizens. They were actually quite hopeful. And I am also aware that NDI and KDI, one of the groups working on electoral violence, had actually conducted a scoping study, which actually come up with the result that about 70% of the people actually wanted this election in Bayelsa. So for me, it's not about the citizens, it's about the political party, and it's about the political system that we have, as a country that keeps eating up the policy, and make elections come in this way.
I have to ask you the same question, Chief Oboforibo. In the past, we've seen some pretty controversial elections in Kogi and Bayelsa. Is there anything peculiar about these dates?
Well, I can speak for Bayelsa. And the thing that's quite peculiar about Bayelsa has an interesting mix. Okay. So, like compared to other Niger Delta states, especially the ones on the western end of the Niger Delta, so that Delta, Edo to a lesser extent, Bayelsa and Rivers, there's a lot of militancy, a lot of cultism, because of as an after effect of the militancy and oil bunkering. So you have
lots of gangs.
Yes, you have a lot of gangs, So you have a lot more arms on the streets, but the streets and creeks. But apart from that, now Bayelsa is a bit different from other states because, unlike say compared to say River State, there is less of a hierarchy in terms of the militancy. So yes, it's more decentralized.
Okay.
And that decentralization lends itself so it's harder for one group or one political group to have a monopoly on the violence.
I see.
So even if you are in other states, you're in the opposition, you don't control the gangs. But in Bayelsa, opposition members can also raise their own gangs.
I see.
And so there's more of the likelihood of there to be clashes. Then apart from that, even within the political class in Bayelsa, you compare the political class in Bayelsa to the political class in, say, Rivers, which is just next door, you have far less cohesion. Far less willingness to say, okay, Organa boss, let us all go along with what he said. So you have more open fights, and that lends itself to violence in the political space. Whereas in a state like in some other states, there's a bit of tension before the primary of the ruling party. But once the ruling party has decided who is there, all the political players fall in line, and the opposition almost becomes sort of like a puppet opposition. But in Bayelsa, no, the opposition is still rooted, and everybody is still ready to go at each other. That's usually the case, although it was less so this time
with this
around.
Particular election. Mr. Folobi, one would assume that both INEC and the security agencies have more resources to deploy in these elections than in the general elections, since it's only 2 states, not 36. Why are we still seeing and hearing these reports of violence and malpractice?
Well, that's also an issue. That's also an issue that I think borders us also as observers. And because we would have expected that with the kind of preparation that they have in both states, and the fact that this election is being done simultaneously. Yeah, that this election is being done simultaneously, that we should have some form of good support from the police, the security, than what we used to, and than what they used to have before. 6,000 security officers, came into Bayelsa, and you would have expected that should be enough to quell, the violence, and that we shouldn't even see any form of violence. But unfortunately, we didn't see that. There was still some pockets of violence. One of the things that I addressed is that maybe there's a need for us to actually interrogate the numbers that the security sectors often tell us that they bring for elections. Whether they're actually that number, that they claim, because in the real sense, you don't really find that number, around. You don't even find that number around. So that's why I think that with that kind of preparation, what we saw actually didn't really match up with the preparations that was put into that election. And for me, the fact that up till now we still have logistical problems, INEC, then shows that there's something really about the system that we need to look at. There's really something that is the pull and push factor, that is not making our elections work for us. It looks to me like it's probably beyond INEC itself. For example, I see no reason, if they are running to elections yesterday, why the elections will start at 8 o'clock as planned. The fact that we got there and people have to wait until 9:30. In some places, people have started fighting, because they didn't see election officials, they didn't see the personnel, we didn't see the material, you know. So we know that there's a problem with the system. So it's beyond the people themselves. You know, it's beyond INEC themselves. So there is really something that, you know, somebody's not talking about. There's really something that we are not discussing. So I think we need to open it up, you know, so that for the coming election we don't have the same problem. You know,
you were not along when she was talking, Jifo Boforo, but you agree with her thoughts?
Yes, I agree. I think let me start by the very first point, which I agree with 100% as she was saying it. I was going along that we have to query those numbers. You know, the security agencies are quick to tell us they're sending so many thousand people, but nobody is ever able to do that head count. And when you look and you extrapolate based on, okay, in this polling unit, I'm seeing 2 policemen. So, okay, there are 2 policemen in every polling unit, or 3 or 4. By the time you add those numbers together, you don't see where those large numbers of that large contingent is, you know, on ground. So that also, you know, the fact that police can be deployed or anybody can make those declarations without any independent probe of it is one of, and we just take it as fact. Police has deployed 10,000 officers. Are we sure? So that's the first. And then, you know, when you know, Oscar Wilde says losing one parent is a tragedy, losing both is carelessness. And you know, so when you say, okay, maybe first time you see that election materials arrived late, it happened the first time. Well, yeah, we can accept that. Yeah, you know, accidents happen, or you know, there are inefficiencies. But INEC is an organization, an institution. You know, yes, INEC changes its recs every 4 to 8 years. INEC changes its chairman in about the same time period. But the admin secretaries and the rest of the administrative apparatus of INEC, they are permanent staff. So the institutional memory of the organization does not change. So why can't INEC learn from elections that take place every 4 years or less? Why is it that we are still having the same logistics lapses, the same problems with delivery, the same lateness issues, the same registration issues, accreditation issues, year after year after year? First time is a tragedy, the second time is carelessness, and the third time is you can say it is done intentionally. You know, so at this point, I think as an umpire, we have to start looking at INEC the way we look at other government agencies, in the sense that we have accepted, we know, even though we cannot point to a particular person until they are sent away. We know that there is massive corruption in government. We know that there is corruption in every ministry, every department, and every agency. So why do we pretend or that we assume that corruption does not exist in INEC as well? Because INEC is showing us all the hallmarks of corruption when we have election after election that cannot be delivered properly. And the fact that we see that there are actually actors who are benefiting from those poorly organized elections. We see politicians winning the seat and only getting removed later on when the thing goes to tribunal, because the tribunal uncovered that there was this particular issue. And you look at the issue and you say, why wasn't INEC able to handle that issue at the time? It speaks to a complicity, maybe not at an institutional level, but individuals within INEC are complicit with individual politicians. And not enough is being done to hold people accountable, because out of the last 6 elections, how many INEC staff have been tried to court for malpractice? You know, how many, then leaving aside court process, how many INEC staff have been queried, disciplined, or dismissed for failures when materials don't arrive in time? I mean, that's a fundamental failure. INEC is only called upon, like in INEC in a state, it's only called upon once every 4 years to hold a governorship election. You know, if even ordinary coach of the Super Eagles you fail to achieve at the World Cup once every 4 years, they sack you. So why is INEC still able to run?
Why is INEC different? Speaking of courts, before you joined the show, Mr. Folobi, I asked Chief Opoforibo about the High Court ruling. You saw the High Court ruling that disqualified the APC candidate in Bayelsa, David Lyon. You also saw INEC allowing the APC to remain in the race, especially because an appeal court stopped INEC from obeying the order. What are your thoughts on that ruling? I'm asking you because you're a lawyer as well. What are your thoughts on
an appeal court? Did you say an appeal court?
Yes, an appeal court. An appeal court stopped INEC from obeying the order from the High Court.
Yes. For me, I don't want to go into the politics of it, but as lawyers, we also know that an appeal court is a higher court.
Yes.
So I don't want to go into the politics of that conversation, because we are observers. So what we are doing is we are just observing, So
what did you observe?
so for me, as a lawyer, I would just say by precedent, so the court of appeal is higher, but of course we also understand that if we look at, I heard everybody was talking about the Omea case, the River State case, and for me, the one that actually came to my mind was the recent Zamfara's case, and I was trying to look at all these judgments, what's the effect of that judgment and what happened in Zamfara and in other places, But be that as it may, initially you had asked about what exactly is the problem with INEC. I think that one of the first things that we need to do, to make INEC better, is to unbundle INEC itself.
Okay.
Because INEC can't do everything. It's as long as they continue to do everything, do voter education, take cases when they have, they have legal aid, legal councils who take up cases and all of that, do voter education, print the ballot paper, make sure they are ready for transportation for elections and all of that. It will be actually difficult, for INEC to run a normal system. At times some of the problems that we see, might not even be directly from them. It could also be from maybe the NULCW, that they have taken to bring people, bring materials and people, to the election locations, and all of that. So I think that one of the things we need to look at is how do we unbundle INEC in such a way that could help us, in making INEC much more effective. As it is, INEC is doing everything, and it looks like Dr. Trade might be a master of none. So I also agree in the point that my learned senior, or my learned brother, made about accountability. If there's no accountability, there will surely be impunity. People will do things in a way that since they know that they are not going to be called to order, since they know that nobody is watching and nobody is raising the issue. I remember that when I got off from the plane today, somebody was asking me a very interesting question. If the election is going to continue this way, what is the sense of observer? What the hell are we observing? If at the end of the day, the observers, the observers' opinion really will not matter. As what we saw in 2019 election, and other places. So what are we going to be able to solve this problem? So I think that accountability is important. Things cannot continue the way it is going. Gradually, people are going to go back. In 2011 and 2015, it looks like when Jaga come on board, it looks like, it's time for us to now start having elections. But if you look at the past elections, we're gradually getting back to the level where Nigerians are not going to be coming out to vote, because there is no point voting if you know that your vote will not count. And for me, those are some of the issues that we need to reflect on. If we really think election would ever matter, in this country.
Mr. Folabi, thank you so much for talking to us on Nigeria Info. Dr. Abiola Akioda Folabi is the chairperson, Transition Monitoring Group, TMG. Thank you so much for your time, madam. Okay, let's bring the conversation over to you, shall we? 01277-0993, 01277-1993, 01277-2993, and 01277-3993. I'm also going to put you in touch with our correspondents who are out in the field covering these stories. And remember the question I asked earlier? How many people do you have influence over whom you have said to one-on-one, vote buying is bad, carrying weapons to fight for politicians, not a bad thing? How many of such people in your own polling units who are poorer than you, who are less educated than you are, have you had that conversation with?
2 states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station. Two states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.
We're right here, Lagos. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. At this time, usually you are listening to the Sports Gang, but Sandra and the rest of the current affairs team have taken over your airways. We've been here since yesterday at 8 a.m. bringing you updates, bringing you live coverage of the Bayelsa and Kogi elections. You can follow this online: Facebook, Nigeria Info FM; Twitter, Nigeria Info FM; YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. You can actually watch, because Nigeria Info FM is a visual radio station. That means that you can see your radio. So what we're telling you, you can actually see. If you're hearing Mark Noble Sunido's voice, Judges Mark Noble Sunido's voice, and he's telling you, oh, if you can see behind me right now, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of people, you can actually see that. The way to do it is to get on Facebook, YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Speaking of Judges Mark Noble Sunido, we are about to be connected with him as he brings us updates from the Collation Center at Kogi State. I had to look up the number of polling units in Bayelsa because of something that our guest who just went off the phone, Dr. Abiola Akiode Afolabi, said. These numbers of security agents that we hear about all the time, and Chief Oboforebo, who's still in the studio with me, buttressed that point as well. These numbers of security agents that we claim to have, who we are always sending out into the field when there's an election, how many are they exactly? Who is verifying the numbers as we claim that they are? So the polling units at Bayelsa, 1,804. Polling units in Kogi State, 2,548. Mr. Oboforebo, my math is horrible. Chief Oboforebo, sorry. My math is horrible, non-existent in fact. But if we've got 1,804 polling units in Bayelsa and 2,548 polling units in Kogi State, and we've got 30,000 police officers, don't you think that these numbers account for, or the number of police officers we see at the different polling units has been properly accounted for?
Well, just doing some quick math, that comes to about something less than 4,500 polling units. And my figure is not very exact. 30,000. So even if it was 5,000 polling units, 30,000 officers is like 6 officers per polling unit. Then you now have to disaggregate because of collation centers. Maybe you take one from every, so you should be able to get about 4 police officers per polling unit. Then the time you add some for collation centers. And that would be fair, but is that what we're seeing on ground? I guess your correspondents will have to answer that question, whether they're seeing like 3, 4, 5 police officers per polling unit, because that's what will justify those results, those numbers.
Those numbers. Okay, let's come to you now who's listening at home. How many people do you have an influence over at your polling unit? Have you had conversations with them one-on-one about vote buying? Have you had conversations with them one-on-one about carrying arms for politicians? Call us on 01277 1993 2993 and 3993. 01277 1993 2993 3993. If you are female, we have a special number for you. If you're male, don't call this number. This number is only for our female callers, female listeners. 01277 0993. 01277 0993. Hello. Thank you for calling us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name?
I'm Abraham from Lekki.
Abraham, welcome.
Yeah, good work that you people are doing there.
Today has not confirmed if
you have been like listening all through.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in 2011, that was the first time I had to vote, as in I was eligible to vote.
Okay.
Then my mom was one of the canvassers for a party, and she had a lot of money with her. She was giving people money to vote for that particular party at the time.
Okay.
And you know what I did?
What?
When I got to the polling unit, I registered my name. My mom was like, she was speaking in Yoruba to me like, you must vote for our party. You know all the food you've been eating these days. They are the ones that gave you all the money you've been spending. They are the ones that... I was like, Mom, even if they don't give you all this money, you still not starve now. And she was like, Kilo me, what do you mean? I said, yes, like, we won't starve even if they don't give you all this money. And people, the crowd there, they were like, the way I was challenging my mom, they were like, this boy is a bastard. And I one thing I just said that was that your party, when they came to campaign, they didn't impress me with their manifesto. You understand? I was like, oh, this particular person, I was impressed by their manifesto, and seriously, I want to vote for this particular party, not yours. And she was like, this guy, you are becoming a bastard these days. I was like, no, the way I was arguing, it was not something private, it was in the public space. And everybody was like, it's true. Let him now, let him vote for whoever he wants to. And that was how people followed me, and they rejected the money, and they were doing voting for the party they wanted. The party they want to. And it was just fun that day. After the whole thing, though our party still won the election, and she was like, you this boy. In the next month I greeted her and she was like, she won't answer me. Until after my dad, it was until my dad had to interfere and just settle everything. That's just it. It's not, and again, one thing I noticed that it's not about these politicians alone. Let me tell you something. There are some people that are interested. Like now, I'm contesting for the president now. Ordinarily, I have about 50 friends. You understand? Maybe you form the group or something, an association. So everybody is vying for her. When you become president, I'll be your this, I'll be your that, I'll be your... So that interest they have in my... As in, when I become the president, that interest they have, they want to protect it. Even if I don't give them money to go and hire talks, they will hire talks for me. Because they know when I get there, they will make something out of it. So sometimes it's not about these politicians alone. Some people go out of their, as in, vision of those politicians to do all those things so that they know they will benefit from the politician when they get there. That's just it.
Thank you for calling to share your thoughts with me on the show. We've got Georges McNobleson Idewu on the line. Hello, Georges.
Hello, Sandra.
Thank you.
Hello, Sandra.
Thank you for thanking me.
What updates do you have for us, Georges?
We have been at the collation center in the INEC office since morning, and they've been rolling out the results. So far, they've rolled out the results from 15 local governments out of the 21 local governments. And as we speak, APC has taken 10, while PDP took 5. update for now. So that is the update for now. We are on break now. We'll come back at 3:30 for the remaining results.
It's looking like begging worked, eh?
You know, I don't really get you, Sandra. I don't
Talking
understand.
to us. We're going to call you back for more updates, okay?
All right, thank you, sir.
All right then. Let's hear from you. 01277 0993 01277 2993 01277 1993 and 3993. At 3 o'clock, we're going to connect with our friends from YIAGA, and they're also going to be telling us their own observations from the field. Eze is in Ijibode. Hello, Eze. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You people are doing a great job. Oh.
Thank you.
God bless you people.
Bless you as well.
Yes. You see, I have not voted for my life. I never one day stand on the voting booth and vote for anybody. But not that I don't like voting. The issue is that the way they put everything on Saturday makes me not to participate. I like to participate. Can you people help Nigerians advise us that for them to know that we have people that are not doing any work on Saturday, they worship on Saturday. This one they are putting every election on Saturday. It makes me, as an Adventist, not to vote. So it deprived me of my right. That's what I'm saying there. Can you help us to talk to Nigerians so that they can shift some of the elections on weekdays? So that those of us who worship on Saturday will have time to go and vote for the people we like.
Okay. All right, Eze.
Yes.
Thanks for calling to share your thoughts. Ben in VI. Hello, Ben.
Good afternoon.
Good
Sandra.
afternoon.
Yeah. I was listening to your guest the other time. I think I want to chip into.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Talk about. You were saying because the runner-up that charged the APC to court in Bayelsa State before the election. He went to court on a different purpose of a kind of a different purpose, and the judgment gave him something surprise to him. Is it possible you go to court? Oh, this primary, I want this primary. Please declare me winner. The judge go ahead and left the purpose of the reason why the guy went to court and said APC, the primary is cancelled. It doesn't make sense. For example, I go to court, I say, this is my land. You are telling me that, no, you don't have right to come here. That's not the reason why I come to court. So I think this is just one point. I think the second point is that some of us here, we I'm sorry to say, we complain sometimes a lot. Many of us here that we call on the radio, we don't have PVC. Some of us, we don't participate in election. But we like to come on here and condemn everything every day. To me, it's not the idea. Please, we should join the politics. We should see whatever thing we can do to change everything, not to be condemning everything every day of life. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ben. Chief of Oforibo, what say you?
Yeah, I will answer both things Ben raised. So first of all, Ben has to understand that so Senator Lokbobiri took the APC to court, and he said to the court, I am the rightful winner of the APC primary. Now, the only way you can prove you're the rightful winner of a contest is to do two things. One, you show the court the rules of the contest to determine who the winner, that the rules by which the winner is supposed to be determined. And then two, you show the court what actually took place. And then basically you're telling the court, you see what took place, in accordance with the rules of the contest, based on what took place, I should be declared the winner. So that's what Senator Lokbobiri did. And then the court, that now invites the court to look at the rules of the election. And rules of the primary, rather. And the court looked at the rules of the primary and saw that Senator Lokpobiri's claim that he won the primary was invalid.
Let me pause you there and talk to Sanusi, who's on hold, and then we'll come back to you. Sanusi, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for calling. Good evening.
Hello, Sandra.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to make a contribution to the discussion.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. With my experience concerning elections in Nigeria, at least I've had about 2 different experiences concerning vote buying. So really, every other party does it. It's just a matter of who can buy it the more, who can pay more for it. So, but the way out of this problem is for every electorate to vote is our conscience. And that's the way forward for all of us.
Way forward for all
the
of us.
day we are able to do that, then Nigeria will be the better for it.
All right. Thank you for calling me, Sanusi. Back to you, Chief Obuforibo.
Sure. So, to recap, what I was saying was, because Ben raised the issue that the court overstepped by disqualifying APC or saying APC doesn't have a candidate, that was not the prayer of Senator Lokpobiri. So I wanted to show Ben why the court came to that conclusion.
That's right.
In order to prove his case, because Lokpobiri's case is that he is the rightful winner of the election, of the primary. How do you prove you're the rightful winner? You have to, 1, bring the rules for conducting the primary. 2, show that according to those rules, based on what actually took place on ground, you were the winner. So he presented those 2 things. And the court saw the rules, because at that point, once you do that, you've invited the court to look at the rules and determine whether the rules were followed, and determine that based on the following of the rules, you were the winner. So the court looked at the rules, also looked at what Lokpobiri described as what took place in the election. And what the court found was that neither Lokpobiri nor Lion met the requirements based on the rules to be the candidate. The court realized that nobody in the APC primary met the rules simply because the APC did not follow its own rules. So,
but was it the court's place to decide that?
It is clearly the court's case. If I come to you and say, come and judge this case, see the rules, come and determine that the rules, because you're saying that 1, come and determine that the other man did not win based on the rules, and 2, determine that I won based on the rules.
Ah, yes.
So you see, once you've done that, the court looked at it and said, okay, so you know what, Mr. Lokpobiri, you are right. David Lion did not win based on the rules. That's your first prayer. But your second prayer that you won based on the rules is also false because nobody won based on the rules. The rules were not followed. So at that point, you have invited the court, and the court has come to look at the matter and has seen that actually nobody won. And it's as simple as that.
That's the first point.
Yes. Once you've invited the court in, you cannot now say, oh, this is not what I asked for.
Okay.
You know, who first called police, they win case. That's exactly what happened here. That should be a legal precedent. Then,
okay.
Then now the second point Ben raised, that, we come on air and we talk, and with most, people who are talking who are not very involved in the process. I agree 100% with Ben. I think more people should do less talking and more, more involvement. And then when they've gotten involved, then they can come out and talk more. I have personally been involved in politics for a long time. I'm actually I have actually stood for election in Nigeria. And I stood for election and won my election without buying a single vote. So I know what it is, and I know what I'm saying. And I'm saying it emphatically that, and this is why I have to disagree with Ben, because Ben is saying we complain too much about what is there. But Ben, the only way something improves is if you complain. If you decide that, oh no, can we do any better? Other people, can they do better? No, let us not complain. Half bread is better than none. You will stay with half bread. And then tomorrow, when they will now give you half of your half bread, which is now 1/4 bread. And you will now say, oh, half bread is better than none. Then tomorrow, next tomorrow, they'll give you half of your half bread. And you're left with 1/8 bread, and they will tell you, well, half bread is better than none. Let's not complain.
And the half continues to be half and half until there's no bread.
Complain. It is your right as a Nigerian to complain that your government is not working properly. It's your right as a Nigerian to complain that INEC is not giving you proper elections. If you don't complain, you will keep getting worse and worse service.
Okay, let's come back to you on the phone lines. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is John from Amukoko.
Welcome, John.
I want to first of all commend you, Mrs. Sandra.
Thank you.
I love your work and your commitment, ma.
Thank you.
And I also commend your guest, Mr.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're even the main reason why I called.
Thank you.
I respect your knowledge and your enlightenment regarding salient issues in our country.
I'm grateful.
I salute you, sir.
I salute you back. I greet you.
Yeah, Mrs. Sandra, you said if I've ever talked to anybody that's involved in ballot snatching or any electoral malpractice, right? I know of a particular teenager. Though now I think he's 20 now, but he's my friend. He told me that when he was in Imo State, then he was a teenager, so that he involved such a thing. He just described the way it happened, that he would just go to that place, in a swift manner, carry the ballot box, and there will be a bike man already waiting. So immediately he jumps onto the bike just moves away. So I told him that it was very wrong. Even him, he was regretting his action because he now knows better now. So that's one of the evils that is occurring in our nation, Nigeria.
It's crazy.
So I want to use this larger platform to advise every youth to just desist from such evil acts, because it will not take us anywhere. It will only lead us to more terrible states. So that's just my contribution this afternoon.
It's quite a lot, John. Make sure you call us again. Thank you for calling us. Ebere is our final call, and she's at Ijegu. Ebere, hi.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi, Ebere. Good afternoon.
I want to thank you for the great job that you are doing at Nigeria Info.
Thank you, sir.
I want to comment on the issue that is being discussed.
Go ahead.
The problem of Nigeria is the problem of the political elite. Before these elections were held, this last election, we were made to understand that we were going to use electronic voting, for which a lot of money was invested into that system. Only to come to the end, we could not practice it. And it had gone. Nobody is saying anything about it. Up till now has not been attended, because somebody knows that it will benefit from this rough kind of system of voting. People are losing their lives every day, and we have kept quiet about it. Even in the corruption fight, it is very, very simple. If the government wants to fight corruption, it knows what to do. Why must I be going with Ghana must go back to buy houses? If somebody is buying a property, there should be a law that person must pay in check or must do any transaction that is above 50,000. It must be in check, so that whoever is making that transaction can be traced. But the government is not doing that. Every day we hear that talk about corruption, yet nothing is happening. I think that Nigerians we have got to the point that Nigerians must rise up and face the political elite. There is no other problem. It is the political class that are causing all the problems we have in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebere, for calling me. On Facebook, George Ajatabo says that your explanation, my guest's explanation, is invalid legally speaking. Lopobiri was not contesting the party's rule, but that during the primary, he scored the legal votes to be declared the winner. The court embarked on a frivolous journey. All right, George. Lucky Aruga says El Rufai doesn't wish the people of Kogi well. If he did, he'll rather help Bello to pay his workers' salaries instead of begging them to continue to bear the untold hardship by voting Yahaya Bello. We've got more comments on Facebook. Don't forget that we're streaming this conversation and you can watch it live. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. YouTube as well, where you can also share your thoughts. YouTube is Nigeria Info FM. And Temitoba says that the entire thing is a scam. On the other side of 3 o'clock, we're going to be speaking with a representative from YIAGA. YIAGA is Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement. They're also known as YIAGA YIAGA Africa. It's a Nigeria-based non-profit that has been around since 2007, and they have played active roles in almost every election, observing election after election after election. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. You're listening to 99.3 Nigeria Info.
2 states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station. 2 states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.
This is Nigeria Info, Election Coverage Studio.
Two states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.
Sandra Ezekwesili, that's who your host is. You're listening to 99.3 Nigeria Info. And it's 2 minutes past 3. We're about to have conversations with our guest from YIAGA Africa, Cynthia Mbamalo. She's a representative from YIAGA. And Cynthia is going to be talking to us about their observations. She's currently in Bayelsa. And when she joins us, she'll be letting us know all of the things that she has noticed while she has been covering the elections in Bayelsa. The collation is still going on there, and if you are hearing the background noise, that's probably the collation center. Cynthia Mbamalo, thank you so much for joining us on our election coverage studio.
Okay, yeah, thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. My name is Sandra Ezekwesili. Now, Cynthia, you've been in Bayelsa for how long now?
I've been here for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, wow. All right, so
Yeah.
you have a lot to say about the things that you've seen and heard since you've been in Bayelsa. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so YIAGA Africa is watching the vote, deployed 500 observers to 250 polling units. We had a sample size of 250 polling units across the state and across the 8 local government areas in the state. We also had 21 mobile observers roving the 8 LGAs and 8 local government results collation observers. So that gave us it put us more at a position to have a fair coverage of the elections. And with this methodology we deploy, we can sample is representative, so we can make give shared data on the conduct of elections, both on the process and the results. Now, one of the things we had done was commence with a pre-elections observation for 8 weeks. We began in September observing the pre-elections environment, looking at INEC preparation, looking at political party campaigns, looking at doing some violence monitoring, and because of the peculiarity of Bayelsa, violence monitoring, and also looking at voter education and engagement. And before the elections, the day to the elections, we had given our pre-election finding summary and our emerging trends. And part of the things we had projected, we had shared as our findings, and also the projections we had made, was one, the fact that there was a likelihood of threats of violence, because in the pre-elections environment, we had tracked that for different campaigns, there were violence and both physical and verbal attacks that trailed the campaigns. And if you'd followed part of the report we had shared, was also revealed in the news, the Nembe crisis in the week of the election, where there was a clash between the APC and PDP supporters. But that was not the only issue, because it had been quite consistent in our pre-election findings throughout the campaign period. There was also the reports of recruitment of thugs across different local governments. We had local government like Southern Niger, Keremo, Obia, where we had reports of recruitment of thugs and stockpiling of arms. Now, that for us was a major issue, not just stockpiling, but easy access to arms. That was a major issue for us, and we have highlighted that as indication that there may be possible threats of violence. And part of the thing was there were reports of sporadic shooting by our long-term observers who were deployed across the local government area. And part of the incidents, we had reports like Keremo, reports before the elections of some of those incidents in Sabama, where there were sporadic shootings and all. Now, if you want to put that together, plus the issue of voter inducement, PVC buying and selling, voter details that were being bought by political parties, some of the local governments. Now, voter inducement, we saw the role of money. We also had made projection that the elections will be determined, one, by money politics or money or show of financial power by the political party. We also had made a report that this projection that the elections also will have likelihood of show of force, where the dominating political parties will want to show which party has more capacity to deploy violence or force in the election. And then also tendency of community coalition. Based on our findings, certain communities would want to vote in a particular way and would want to undermine the process to ensure that their party is at an advantage in those locations. Now, these were some of our projections. But then in the week of the elections, the court decisions had also created several uncertainties in the electoral process. So INEC's deployment of materials were to be conducted on Thursday, the 14th of November. And our pre-election finding that actually showed that INEC commenced early preparatory activities based on their election timetable. So INEC had talked or complied with their timetable, deployment of sensitive materials, by non-sensitive materials by the 12th of November. Our LGA supervisors across the local governments could confirm that non-sensitive materials were already deployed. However, sensitive materials was to be deployed by Thursday, but with the court decision on whether APC would be on the ballot or not, INEC couldn't deploy on Thursday until another court decision that came out. So INEC commenced deployment of sensitive materials on Friday. And one of the things we had highlighted was as at 4:20, the last materials left from INEC Yenegua to LGAs by 4:30 p.m. on Friday, the 15th of November. Now, if you know Bayelsa, though a small state, what its terrain, geography-wise, they have regions that it takes over 2 hours from just Yenegua to those communities. Some of the places you need to go by boat. And we had raised concerns that the late deployment from Friday, there were indications would have late commencement for polls. Now, on election day, our observers deployed from 7 a.m. to our sample polling unit. Now, one of the things, we released a midday situational analysis of the process yesterday, and we'll be releasing our final statement on the conclusion of the process subsequently, because collation is still ongoing if you followed the news, so we can't also make certain statement on that because the process is still ongoing. But based on our initial findings from yesterday and the report we had released, was once the late commencement of polls across the state. Now, one of the things we had seen was as at 7:30 a.m., we only had INEC officials who were present in barely 26% of our polling units. Based on that, our sample size. Now, because our sample is representative, we can make projections across the state. While we normally track arrival of polling officials because that gives a better indication of commencement. If you have INEC officials present, then you can have commencement begin on time, of course, begin on time. So one of the things we had seen from our observers was one, INEC officials, despite the late deployment on Friday, they actually did arrive at some of the RACs and LGAs, RAC registration area centers. However, in one for instance in Otueke, in Obia, where at least I can speak for that for one, as at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, materials and officials were present, but security agents were not available and they couldn't move to deploy the polling unit. This was 9:30 and our observer gave us report as at 10 a.m. the movement was yet to be done. Now that is moving 2 polling units for polls. Now that was not just an isolated case. We also had reports of different polling units where so the Otueke case, the night before, the community and some hoodlums had detained Electoral Commission and the materials, and security agents and personnel were not even helpful to address that situation. So we had other locations where materials and INEC were ready, but without security, they can't move because the law, with our conduct of election, you need security to accompany the movement of materials. So these were some of the reasons we felt we had late commencement of polls. So by 7:30 a.m., only 24% of polling units had INEC officials present, and as at 12:30 p.m., that's some minutes after noon, we only had 56% of polls open in the state. And one of the things we had done by midday was to issue a statement calling on the Electoral Commission to postpone to extend voting time to 5 p.m. You know, by the law, voting ends at 2 p.m. or when the last person on the queue at 2 votes. So we had asked for an extension to 5 p.m. Why? Because some voters may have gone out and wouldn't have seen the commission officials present. They will go back home and they may come back noon too, and finally they may find officials present. So we also did not want a situation where voters will be disenfranchised from in the process. But one of the striking things, and perhaps this was one common trend that we had seen in both Bayelsa and Kogi, was the issue of violence to disrupt the process. And as at the morning of the election, we are still getting reports of locations where materials were carted away from RACs, that's registration area centers. That meant the materials to be deployed to polling units, some of them armed thugs, some of them community leaders. We had one led by a community chairperson just going and taking the materials and leaving. We had reports of ballot papers burned, where there are places where voting has commenced and ballot paper burned, and then places where in southern Nigeria where the materials were, there was a boat hijacked. The boat was conveying election materials and personnel, and it was hijacked, and the materials were thrown in the ocean. Now, those were some of the issues we had raised in our pre-election, in our midday situational analysis. So the issue of late deployment, which led to late commencement of polls, then the issue of materials being carted away with, and then also one of our observers was actually attacked in Yenegua and Okolo community. Armed thugs came to disrupt the process and literally said they didn't want observers there. And he unfortunately was dressed in his observer task, so he was identified as an observer and he was beaten and he sustained injuries and he was asked not to return. There were sporadic shooting and certain casualties recorded in that community. We also had reports of attempts to disrupt the process in certain other polling units. Now, that was some of the reports we had received. We're still receiving our reports from our observers and doing our analysis, and we'll be going and we'll be sharing our findings on the whole process from commencement to close, because our observers were asked to remain at their polling units from opening of polls to the results are posted at the polling unit level. While our collation observers are still at the collation centers, and one of the things we have seen was some local governments couldn't conduct LGA results collation at local government level today for security reasons. We got a confirmed report from Southern Niger. They had to move the collation to the capital. I'm still tracking. We got reports at one or two other local government, and I don't want to. I need to be specific, so I do not want to mention what I'm not sure about. But so LG collation is still ongoing, like I said. But we're watching. One of the things I think stood out for us was, regardless, voters still came out to vote. So yesterday it actually rained, but voters still braved the rain and then came out to vote. During,
I like that. Now, I have to ask you, Cynthia, do you agree with the people? Because you talked about vote buying, right? And I mean, you observed that there was a lot of that going on. We saw videos purportedly shot in Bayelsa and Kogi showing sharing of money to voters as well. I have to ask if you agree that the people are at fault for the rampant nature of vote buying.
Well, it would be unfair to put the blame on people. Why? Because you need to first question the system itself. We live in a system where the people have been oppressed for a very long time. There's an increase in poverty. Bayelsa State, for instance, is one of the states that has a higher percentage of unemployment rate in Nigeria. And let's say, bear in mind that this is the state in 2018 had the fourth largest federal allocation. So it's a state that is reasonably rich. Population-wise, it is small. I mean, we only have about 1,804 polling units. Registered voters is not up to 1 million, right? It's not, sorry, it's about 900. It's not up to 1 million like you have in other states. So population-wise, it's not such a big state. This is a state where issues of unemployment shouldn't be a major issue. Poverty shouldn't be a major issue. Same also if you go to Kogi, the same issue you'd find. So you have a state where the people are impoverished. Now, most times, people only feel the impact of government during elections, but during campaigns, that is when these politicians come with their monies and want to buy. So the campaigns were not issue-based. The campaigns were basically campaigns of money. It was money politics. Who had the most to give? So it was about the highest bidder. Who had the most funds to give. And the people, I don't blame them totally, because after a period of time, if you feel this is the only time you're going to get anything from this class of politicians, then they wouldn't be listening to whoever is telling them do not sell your vote or do not collect money, because for them, governance does not happen. There is no dividend of democracy. For me, this is the only time I'm going to see anything called dividend of democracy, so I will take it now. So that is where I would start from. I put most of the blame on the political class because they are the major problem we have in Nigeria now. Leadership, we have poor leadership, and we have a political class who have, over a long period of time, benefited from a failed and flawed system. From a failing and flawed system. And they've enriched themselves, impoverished the people in such a way that whenever they want to manipulate the system, it's easier to manipulate, because if you have a people who do not see and who do not appreciate the power in their vote or their right to dignity of person to hold government to account, what that happens, whatever you give to them, they take that. So that is one angle. However, I will still come back to the people, because democracy cannot work if the people can't stand up. We need to get to a point when we say enough is enough. But how many citizens are willing to say, I don't want hunger for 4 years because I want to eat today. I want to solve my next 4 years hunger, starting by not collecting today, so that I can stand up to the political class. So that is where we haven't gotten to. The people realizing the power of their vote, or realize that they can actually choose the kind of government that they want. They can actually demand accountability, and that they actually deserve better as citizens. So we haven't gotten to that point.
Cynthia, I want to talk about INEC itself, right? Again, like in the general elections, we had numerous cases of late arrival of materials, which delayed the start of voting. Yes, you also talked about that when you were giving your report. Former President Jonathan also complained yesterday that at his polling unit, voting started hours late. Why does INEC still have difficulties with logistics and late arrival of materials? It's two states. It's not a national election now. It's a state election.
So I think, one, you have to look at the context within which INEC operates. Now, I do not hold brief for INEC, and I wouldn't be speaking for INEC, because they also have their roles and responsibilities when it comes to elections administration, which is their main function. But what happens when INEC is ready to deploy, but security agencies are not available to deploy? Let's bear in mind that there's an election committee, ECES, the Electoral Committee for Election Security. I'm not missing about ECES committee, where you have leadership from INEC and security meet before elections, and they meet periodically to decide and determine deployment plans. So that is one. You have an electoral commission who does not function on its own. It needs the coordination and collaboration of the security to deploy. You look at the riverine areas in Bayelsa, for instance. This is not the first time we're conducting an election. So I wouldn't say this terrain is new or INEC is not familiar with that. But INEC draws up a plan. Says one, Navy would coordinate the movement with the boat vendors who would help moving that. Navy would coordinate that. Because INEC doesn't have that capacity. For the road transportation, there's a contract entered into with the Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers. There's also coordination with the police, it's coordination with the Air Force, for instance. So this coordination happens. Now you want to deploy materials. INEC is ready, materials are ready, but the security angle is not there. We had the Union of Transport Workers that, as at yesterday morning, wanted to renegotiate the terms of their contract. Now, how do you put an INEC to ransom on the day of the election, claiming to want to renegotiate the terms of contract? Now, you have the police, who ordinarily should deploy. At some racks, security personnel were not present. They went to the polling units, leaving the materials and personnel at the racks, knowing that you need security to move materials to the polling units. So that is where I would say it's not just about INEC, it's the fact that the institutions that have roles to play are also failing to live up to the expectation. But beyond that is also the level of scenario planning and building that the Electoral Commission does. Because when it comes to elections operation, you have to have plan A, B, C, D, considering the context within which you work in. Administering election in Nigeria is difficult. You're fighting against the political class that want to undermine every process. So each time you build your process, we've built our electoral process to a point that we shouldn't be having this problem. But the political class are a step ahead on how to manipulate the process. So they don't want things to work. You're dealing with that. You're dealing with security agents who also are not so neutral. And professionalism is not necessarily a principle of virtue. You have within an electoral commission where it's beyond just the INEC chair and commissioners, you have a civil service system where people have been there for a long period of time, benefited from things not working, and may not be very quick to want change to come into the system. So you're also fighting that. So when you see reports of compromise from INEC officials, you see most times it's reports from state or local government levels and all of that. It's not necessarily about just centered on one individual at the top. So these are the challenges you're looking at. Now, to deal with that, you would first need to have the political will on the part of the government to say, one, for instance, some of the reforms, the electoral reforms recommendations, how do we implement and institutionalize that? How do we ensure the independence of the Electoral Commission? How do we ensure the independence of our security personnel so that they don't play on a particular template rather than the template that protects the interests of the people? Then the political class, when do they say enough is enough? We actually want democracy. Because now I don't think they are interested in democracy. And I think it's all sense of responsibility. We shouldn't be having these kinds of elections at this time in Nigeria. We shouldn't have elections where there are reports of materials scattered away, or thugs deployed, or arms, or shooting. We shouldn't. It's an election, not a war, right? So, why should political parties have budgets for arms? Why should political parties have budgets for drugs?
Do political parties have budgets for arms and drugs?
For elections, I mean, for you to be able to get the kind of arms you see, obviously there must be a budget, because arms don't come cheap, If thugs have arms, they must have been given to them by someone. Someone has paid for those services. If there are reports of drugs being spread across, thugs are not thinking in their right senses, someone is paying for this. It's not free. People don't just wake up and say, I'm going to take arms to do this. Someone must have paid for that. There's a market for that.
Okay.
Meaning someone is planning for that. Because we shouldn't have pre-election. The pre-elections reports were showing all of these indices. And one of the things we were doing was basically calling the political class, you have a role to play to ensure safety and peace. We shouldn't be having reports of even one person dying in an election. Why should citizens die for an election?
Great question. Cynthia Mbamalo is the program manager, YIAGA Africa. She's also the director watching the vote. Cynthia, thank you so much for giving us some of your time in our election coverage studio. We're going to get back in touch and hear what else you have to share as Bayelsa continues its collation.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Cynthia Mbamalo over there. Chief Oboforebo, thank you for your patience as we listened to that conversation.
It was quite an education for me.
Yes, I mean, election materials and votes were poured into the sea.
Yes, I'd heard that already. And, yes.
That stood out for me.
Yeah, well, that's welcome to Southern Ijaw local government. It's a well-known hotbed for electoral violence and electoral. I mean, like I say, going back to the Second Republic, that area of what is now Bayelsa State has always been a very hot place when it comes to that. There are ballot boxes. Lots of ballot boxes have ended up at the bottom of the sea in Southern Ijaw. That happens quite a lot.
And this is something that we've grown accustomed to. What are your thoughts on the reports that she shared with us?
My first thought, or rather my dominant thought throughout the report was, what are the security agencies doing when such a report exists, So you have YIAGA bringing up these very hard facts, saying there's this arms build-up in Bayelsa State, and there's going to be a show of violence in Bayelsa State, and the parties are stockpiling money to buy elections. And this is an NGO, a civil society organization. They don't have the intelligence network that I was about to say that the security agencies do. Well, let me say that the security agencies claim they do.
Okay.
And the security agencies collect money every year in the budget to maintain. So why is it that a CSO can have this information and the people who are paid by you and I to have this information are not acting? So even if for whatever reason the police, the SSS and the army could not get this information on their own with their own materials, which would be a big shame to our security agencies, now a third party, a civil society organization, have on their own, with their own private resources, gotten this information and made it open source, available to the public. So why did the security agencies not operate based on it, act on it? How were, in spite of these warnings from a civil society organization like YIAGA, how was it that still, in spite of that, undesirable elements were able to get their hands on electoral materials and dump them in Davy Jones' locker?
Meanwhile, we're getting unconfirmed reports that the candidate for the gubernatorial elections for the PDP, Musa Wada, has conceded defeat, and he has congratulated Yahaya Bello in Kogi State. We're trying to get in touch with Georges McNobleson Idowu. So, Colette, if you're listening, please call Georges McNobleson Idowu so that we can confirm for you this report that we're getting, that the PDP candidate has conceded defeat and has congratulated Yahaya Bello, the incumbent governor of Kogi State. You're listening to Nigeria Info's election coverage studio. We're going to take your calls as well. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. If you just tuned in and joined us, welcome.
2 states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station. Two states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.
Yes, indeed, Lagos. Good afternoon. It's 3:30. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. We got in touch with the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria yesterday during the elections, and he had this to say.
Whatever we do in selecting who will be our governors, selecting who will be our local government chairman, reflects on society. And if you bring people that are not competent, you cannot turn around to begin to blame government. Nigerians were so quick at blaming people in authorities without blaming ourselves. Look at even this voting. I was here 19 minutes after 8. Election supposed to start 8 a.m. And I have led observation missions in so many other African countries. And we used to go there 30 minutes before starting. And in our reports, we indicate exactly when the vote starts. Because if you start after that time, it's an indictment. But at 19 minutes after 8, there was nobody. All the people who are managing the elections are very young people. So you, the youth, to stop blaming the old people. You yourself should begin to blame yourselves. You must do things properly. I was here. No INEC officials to conduct the elections, no security personnel to manage the elections, no journalists to observe the elections because there's only one online media house that I met, no single observer that I met here, even the voters were not here. I've never observed that in any African country. So we Nigerians must begin to look inward and ask ourselves, what is our problem?
Governance, policy, and politics expert on the show with me today, Chief Andrew Boforibo. What are your thoughts on former President Goodluck Jonathan's opinion?
The former president is correct when he lists the problems, because we all know, all of us who have voted know, materials arrive late, people are not on ground. But the former president is 100% incorrect in his assessment about why this is happening. It's always very easy for people of that generation to blame the youths. Which youth is he blaming? What control do the youths have over these issues? So let's run through the issues, shall we? INEC arrived late, materials arrived late. Is Mahmoud Yakubu, the chairman of INEC, is he a youth? Is a rec in Bayelsa State a youth? How many youths are involved in the administration of an election from INEC? Not many. Let's start there. Let's move on. Observers did not arrive. Media houses did not arrive. Most media houses and observers are not there because they don't have the money to send people to every local government area because the economy is poor. Why is the economy poor? Because government for the last 60 years has been abysmal. How many youths have run Nigeria? Was Mr. President a youth when he ran Nigeria? No, he was a mature man who should have known better. How well did he do to grow the economy? His predecessors, how well did they do? His successor, how well has he done? The economy is not running properly, so media houses and NGOs do not have the money to send reporters and observers to everywhere. Then let's move on. Even when they do, the roads are bad. You have local governments, whole local governments in Bayelsa State that are inaccessible by road, simply because there may be 5 kilometers of water between them and the mainland, and nobody not a former president while he was president, not a former president while he was governor or deputy governor, had the foresight to build bridges to those places. Was Mr. President a youth when he was president for 6 years and did not build bridges to those communities? Was he a youth when he was governor and did not build bridges to those communities or roads? You leave a country inaccessible, and then you wonder why observers and media houses cannot send people there to observe elections. And then you want to blame it on the youth, when it was done purposely by politicians of all parties, none of them youths, to ensure that elections are difficult to monitor so that they can do what they want to do, which is buy the votes and shoot the votes they can buy. And then you blame that on the youth.
Let's come back to you on the phone lines. 01277 0993 1993 2993 3993. 01277 0993 1993 2993 3993. What are your thoughts on Chief Oboforibo's opinion of former President Goodluck Jonathan's opinion? And what are your thoughts on former President Goodluck Jonathan's opinion? Francis is in Bagada. Hello, Francis. Welcome.
Yeah.
You're live on the show. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, we saw it coming that the election was going to be do or die affair.
Okay.
And it was going to be by hook or crook. It was going to be by at all costs for the ruling party. So we are not surprised with Kogi's, result so far that the opposition party has acceded defeat, considered rather defeat to the incumbent. Well, it's good that he did that very quickly to avoid unnecessary clashes. That's really good.
Okay.
But where does this lead us to? For somebody that has failed, woefully failed, and yet coming back to do what? The Lord will bless Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Francis, thank you so much for calling. Interestingly, we have PDP agents who rejected results that were announced by INEC for places like Okene local government area, for instance. And the governor is from Okene local government area. Okehi, where you have Natasha Akboti's local government area, she also did not do well there. Musa Wada, who we're hearing has conceded defeat, is from Dekina local government area. And you have to know, of course, that Okene and Adavi are APC strongholds and they polled very heavily in these local government areas. We have a PDP state agent who rejected the results of Adavi local government area as well. Kababunu used to be a PDP stronghold. It's the current PDP spokesman's local government, but it's also the current speaker of the assembly's area. So it was quite the battleground. Let me talk to Julius in Ojo. Hello, Julius. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Julius.
Thank you so much. I've been listening to your program.
Go ahead.
And I'm happy with the man you have in the studio there.
Okay.
You see, we Nigerians, we are very good in blaming. The former president was trying to be smart. Most of those things he outlined, those years that he was our president, how far, what did he do different from what is happening now? And blaming the youth, which youth are they blaming? They themselves, who are in authority for all these years, what have they shown us the right way? It's always good for people to come and criticize and tell us how bad another person is. Look at Kogi State now. People are blaming or saying the incumbent party or this or that are doing this or that. Why they sit on the fence? They don't join. The good people, those who think they are good in Nigeria, they fail to join the politics. And they allow the people who they think they are not good to run the show. So until Nigerians begin to come into the party themselves, be part of those parties and change things so that Nigerians can move forward. That is my own statement.
Your submission. Julius, thanks for calling me. Titus is in Lekki. Hello, Titus.
Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon. Yours is the last call I'll take. Hello, go ahead.
Thank you. I have been calling since now. Thank God for the man, the PDP man, to consider the seat and congratulate the so-called incumbent governor.
Okay.
You see, the trend in Nigeria politics, I know it will go like this, but the Kogi people will stand to suffer for what they have, the decision that might have taken now. Because you see, even everybody know that YIAGA Bello have said that state. I'm not saying that the PDP bet is even better, but Kogi people should have changed from where they were and go for try a better place, or whether that place is a better place or not. So Jonathan was saying this when he was there, when he was our president. What did he do in the South and Southeast? He did nothing. And he's not telling us that when you're observing elections, was not good. He has the opportunity to start electoral law into, electoral into law. He did not do it. He brought Nigeria for confirm 2014, and he has all he has to sign it into law. He did not do it. What he said, talking with this. So what we are having today is, I always say this: the 8th National Assembly is the best National Assembly we ever have. They have passed many bills, and even the electoral bill, they tried to pass it many times. The president rejected it because of this kind of the situation we are finding ourselves today. So all these things they are talking about, unless we go to that electoral bill, we sign the electoral bill into law and make Nigeria a governable state, not ungovernable state. What we are seeing is ungovernable state. Some people will just come do everything so that this country will, because some are benefiting from what they are, the evil seed they are sowing. I'm very sorry. I'm very, very pathetic for this country. Our children, I don't know their future.
Thanks for calling me. We've got as Vivian who says Goodluck Jonathan is being biased with such a comment. I'm not surprised though. We have Robert Patrick who's inviting us to go and eat obono soup because he cannot kill himself. Omowali Orun says, until we're ready to die for the truth and defend our faith, no matter whose ox is God, these same people will continue to complain. Why are you complaining now? You went the extra mile to malign the name of GEJ. You are plugging. Okay, I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to write, but thank you so much, Omowali, for getting in touch with me. Chief Oboforibo, I have to ask you about the violence with these elections. So before the election, and you also heard Cynthia Mbamalu talk about it, that their pre-election reports, their their projections for the elections included a lot of violence for Bayelsa State. But that with the court rulings, a lot of uncertainty occurred, and so we did not see as much violence as we expected. There was some violence, but not as much as we expected for Bayelsa, unlike in Kogi. And there were other analysts as well who were worried that the level of violence in Bayelsa would be quite high. And now that the election is over, the reports that we're getting are that while there was violence, it was not as high as expected. What do you think was responsible for the de-escalation?
Well, politics is responsible for the de-escalation. Simply put, Bayelsa is a place where once you have like various factions, and these factions, the stakeholders are in opposing camps, it's bound to get hot, it's bound to get violent. But what you had here is that at the very last minute, a lot of the stakeholders, the political leaders and godfathers in the state all shifted position, and they abandoned the PDP and moved to the APC at the dying minute. Because of the the nature of the PDP primary. A lot of press has been given to the APC primary, and because it went to court and it was scattered, but the PDP primary was not much better. In fact, so a lot of PDP stakeholders, including the former President Jonathan, who we just heard, were not happy about the PDP primary. They believe that the incumbent governor, Seraki Dixon, imposed his candidate, Doye Diri, on the party. And they had other candidates that they were all, supporting, Kenebi Okoko and so many others. And so the annoyance was that Dixon did not, to use the Nigerian political phrase, carry along the other major stakeholders in the party, like the former president, and the other people of that nature. And so there was a soft pedaling in the support for the PDP candidate. If you notice, a lot of, the former president Jonathan did not show up for a couple of the rallies that he was expected to show up for. There were, so many things. So a lot of, what you hear from Bayelsans, including, because, I am partly Bayelsan, what you hear is that, well, the PDP chieftains are not really behind the PDP candidate. And so when it's like that, then the militants themselves also don't get behind the candidate. And when the militants are not behind the candidate, then they shoot less because, well, why are they shooting for? So that was one of the things that contributed to the de-escalation of violence in Bayelsa, a lack of buy-in to the PDP candidate.
I see. We often hear a complaint, and I'm bringing this up right now because the Bayelsa collation has begun. We're currently watching that, and we're going to hook up with our correspondent in Bayelsa to hear some of the report that he may have. He's already told us, by the way, that there was some argument over the court orders before the election. The argument was raised by the PDP agent, but the APC agent countered it. So there was some argument about that before the collation began. So I'd like to call him so that we can hear more about that particular situation. But before we get in touch with him, I want to find out what you think about the allegations or complaints that results announced at the polling unit are changed at collation, right? We also have a complaint, by the way, that because we must wait for all the collation at all levels, that can also contribute to, or that could contribute to a change in some of these results. Do you think that changing the rules to allow announcement of results from polling units would make elections more transparent? I'm asking especially because of the situation in Kogi where we have the PDP agents rejecting results, but we have the PDP candidate saying, I concede, we must know the time to move on. Congratulations to the APC candidate.
Yeah, okay. So this issue of non-instant results, it's a big problem. It creates. Let me speak from personal experience.
Okay.
When I stood for my election, I won my election at the polling unit, and I had my results at the polling unit because I created a situation room for myself. So as results were coming in, my agents were calling and with the results, and it was just simple. We didn't have money. It was just Excel spreadsheets we were using. So they were calling in from the polling unit to give our people at the sit room the results, and we're putting it in the Excel spreadsheets, and we're getting instant. We knew where we stood. So at the moment when we had enough votes, we knew we had enough votes to win. We'd won the election. Very, very happy. We'd won enough wards, LGs. We had everything. And then the results were not taken to the collation center. And at the collation center, the police and the army beat up my agents and refused to let them in.
I laugh because it's sad.
It's Nigeria.
I'm laughing because it's sad.
So if I tell you what they did to me, you'll even laugh harder then.
Okay.
But at the end, so anyway, long story short, they took over the collation centers, and then we were locked out all across. And by the time results started coming out of those collation centers, I had lost by a landslide. Like, I'm not saying that, it wasn't a close thing. Like, at the polling unit, I won by a good amount, but it was not a landslide. Like, I was winning like 60 to 40%, 60 versus 40, 50, 55 versus 45. By the time the results came from the collation center, I was losing by 90% against 10%. 95 against 5. They just wrote a very beautiful result for themselves.
Wow.
And because the result from the polling unit, even though under law, by law, the polling unit result is the binding result.
I see.
But what happens is a lot of the time, when the thing gets to the collation center, they even seize those results from you and everything, and then it goes on. So now imagine a situation where those polling unit results could have been announced. Then the violence at the collation center will not even happen.
So the violence will then happen at the polling unit?
Yes, okay, yeah, fine. The violence will happen at the polling unit. But then that means you need widespread violence. But now as it stands, yes. So let us say now, okay, which is harder? To send militants and thugs to control 3,000 polling units, or to send militants and thugs to control, say, 500 collation centers.
There are a lot of militants and thugs.
But it's harder if you have to spread them out into 3,000 places as opposed to 500.
It's only harder if the people want to resist them. If somebody has a gun or a machete, we're going to run as a people.
Okay. Now, that is true. That happens. But a lot of the time, if the people care about... And that's the other thing. At the collation center, there's no crowd. At the polling unit, there's a big crowd.
Okay.
So even if you want to, like, galvanize people to, resist vote rigging and resist... It's easier done at the polling unit than at the collation center.
Here in Lagos at Okota, there was a big crowd, but they had guns, they had machetes, people had to run for their lives.
In River State, in Ogubolo, where I'm from, there was a big crowd of women, and people in army uniforms, both soldiers and militants, tried to hijack the collation center, and those women in their hundreds, they invaded the collation center, and they sang songs, and they stayed and they kept night vigil and refused to allow the soldiers to take the results. So it varies from place to place. But if we can't even do that, they were bound to failure. But at least with this one, sometimes it will fail like in Okota, but sometimes it will succeed like in Ogubolo. But we need instant results. I will use the example of the United States. You know that the United States, they're just like us. The voting takes place at polling units. Which are called voting precincts, and then moves on from there and is collated, and it moves on at high levels of collation as it gets to the state and all of that. It takes weeks for them to finish and do everything, but yet they give us a result that night. You know why?
Yes.
Because they allow the result to be announced at that polling unit level and allow the press to take that result and announce it live on television.
Which takes away the chances of manipulation.
Exactly. Then the counting is still going on behind the scenes. The collation is going on behind the scenes. Official result comes out days later. But that official result now matches what has been announced.
But what happens with the polling unit results being announced is that the people can start doing their own calculations.
Exactly.
And so everybody's math tallies.
Because now in America, the 6 or 7 different news stations are doing their tallies. You in your house, you're doing your own tally. The bloggers are doing their own tally. And because it's coming out fresh from the polling units, everybody's coming up with the same tally.
So this is probably what we need to do here.
It is what we need to do here.
What are we going to need to do to get that to happen in Nigeria?
We need to reform the Electoral Act. We need to amend the Electoral Act to allow for announcement of polling unit results and automated transmission of results. So automated collation. We need to take the power out of the collation center. Until we do that, we are joking.
What do you think about the PDP candidate in Kogi conceding defeat? Is it surprising that he conceded while his agents were disputing the results?
Okay, so the class prefect in me will say he shouldn't have conceded. If his people on ground, his followers, his workers, his agents are saying that there were irregularities on ground, then he owes a duty not just to them but to the voters to test it, to go to court. Because one of the problems that we have in Africa in general, Nigeria in particular, is we always like leave them now. Just leave the matter. Nobody wants to go the extra mile. So, like for instance, Atiku went to court, and people were telling Atiku, don't go to court, leave the matter, leave it for God. But it's good that he went to court. And now I'm not saying that Atiku won the election or lost the election. The Supreme Court has ruled. But imagine if every single time somebody went to an election and they felt cheated, they actually went to court. That's how systems become more robust. But at the same time, that's me talking as a class prefect. So let me now talk as a man who has observed Nigeria. And you look at it and you realize that a lot of the time, you go to court and the thing that you hear in the court is even worse than what you heard on the day, because the court can make any kind of funny ruling and all your money has just gone down the drain. I mean, the court, I said before, the court in Rivers said that Rivers State has a governor who never stood for an election. They just made him governor. So when you look at things in that way, I can understand why somebody will say, you know what, let's just move on. For the sake of peace in the state, for the sake of every other thing, let's just move on. It has happened before, and then it will happen again.
It will happen again. All right, let's keep getting your thoughts. 01277 0993, 01277 1993, 01277 2993, and 01277 3993. We've got more results coming in. Ampa local government area, APC polling there with 11,269 votes, and PDP 28,108 votes. The SDP polled 399 votes, and this is from Kogi State. Ampa local government is in Kogi State. The more we know, the more you will know as well. I'm also looking at results from Sabama local government in Bayelsa, and the PDP polled 60,000 votes, 60,399 votes in Sabama. The APC 7,831 votes, APA 15 votes, AAC 15 votes, ZLP 0 votes. I like the name of that party, ZLP.
It's to make sure that nobody misses where they are in the ballot.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name, sir?
Yeah, Emeka, first time.
Emeka, welcome.
Okay. My brother and my sister, every Nigeria should be worried, because this kind of bloodletting in the guise of an election is taking us back to centuries ago. So all this money we are wasting for INEC and security agencies for nothing. If they don't want to conduct the election, they should be appointing to administrators instead of killing people in the guise of conducting elections. Because you can't just say you are supporting democracy and the main essence of democracy is removed. If you remove people's right to vote and decide their leaders, it's no longer democracy. Except they find a name to give it, or Nigeria to own up the responsibility of challenging the status quo. Because some of these talks they are in today now, in the next few months, they will become a problem to the society. How do you receive those guns from them? How do you make people to realize that this kind of things are bad? If those that come out of it are called excellence. Excellence in what? Excellence in trust, excellence in manipulation. I think the people of Kogi, the reason why I think people of Kogi is that at the end of the day, they will pay for the vote, directly or indirectly. And for Bayelsa, if Jonathan could allow people to humiliate him out of Abuja and humiliate him in his own state, it will be a joke of the century. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you for calling us, Emeka. Hello, Mr. Darlington.
Actually, not Darlington. This is Larry.
Hello, Landry. Welcome.
Sorry, please. Well, I've been with you guys all through since yesterday, even on to the night.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. The point, nature has to take its place, and I slept off. Only for me to wake up and I saw obviously CDP concede. I don't understand that one.
Well, we're waiting to get an official statement from Wada Musa. Those reports are unconfirmed as of now.
Okay. Please, what about the senatorial?
That's still ongoing. We're also getting reports unconfirmed about who's leading there. As soon as we get confirmed reports, we'll share those as well. That's ongoing.
Unconfirmed is what now exactly?
Well, I can't share unconfirmed reports, can I?
No, but it is unconfirmed. You already said unconfirmed. Remember when I called and I told you I called my people back at home and they were telling me unconfirmed, but now it's becoming confirmed because the prayer rites, prayer ceremonies of those boys have been done, So I really just wanted to know, because I slept at the point, I had to sleep because it's not easy. I commend you guys. At the point I had to sleep. I just wanted to come up, I don't want to leave the station and start looking around so I just wanted to come up just to know what's up.
Well, how about I promise you that I'm going to try and get confirmation and then I'll share that with you. All right. Thank you so much for calling me. Let's see. We're going to try and connect with the Bayelsa Collation Center right now, where Joshua Rogers is keeping it warm for us. So we'll take a quick break, come back and connect with Bayelsa and then hear what's going on. It looks very lively. It looks like a lot of questions are being asked, and I definitely want to hear them. Now, before we move on, let's hear from Senator Dino Melaye.
From national to state to the local government level.
We therefore rely on what is made as a provision for us.
Well, sorry about that. We're going to fix that audio and play it again for you. But you can get on our social media: Facebook, Nigeria Info FM, Twitter, Nigeria Info FM, and Instagram, Nigeria Info Lagos, and watch the interview with Senator Dino Melaye.
2 states, 2 deaths. Will help define the governorship elections.
The materials of Ward 11 was hijacked at the RA Center, RAC Center, taken to Goodluck. The RA supervisor confirmed that this thing happened in our presence. Sure, we recorded her on phone. When we called her and said, look, she said yes, she's aware that this thing happened, the hijacking of the materials in Ward 11 took place in her presence, and that she will ensure that no votes will come from Ward 11. But unfortunately, here we are, being told, being given votes purportedly recorded for Ward 11. Thirdly, Ward 6. In short, what transpired, the security agencies investigated and found that the SPA for Ward 6 collaborated with PDP agents and absconded with the materials. So at the collation officer, the World Collation officer, and the SPA, the collation officer was arrested even. Because the commissioner of police will intervene and said we should be allowed to conclude the process. But the new and weighty evidence, I am surprised and shocked. My party is shocked that we are here. We receive results. I want to know, as a lawyer, I know that this result. I want the officer to
thank you. Yeah, do you have I think the audience. So, okay, please. Thank you.
My name is Peter. Very busy. I represent Accords. To my greatest surprise, the score given to Accords is quite different from government agents in the law. We have a surprise. One I really have to say the council is not good. And some of those things happen to be the of our problem. I am surprised that some of the NGOs that are doing elections have never already said that as the reward of the mountain, the nation. That made an executive report, we have our report,
just listen to us, this is what we all and the thing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please to observe our good. I and my brother and friend. Thank you. Thank you. Second thing. The dedication is namely there was no election to which works because our agents there called and reported. But at that time, we are waiting for the material and the nothing material. It was 11 and 1. Therefore, we are asking that where the law should be cancelled because they are purported to work. There was no election there. It was confirmed that election did not take place there. So we are demanding that this law should be cancelled. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I am Professor Joseph of Seneca of the Department of Statistics, University of the West. I'm a professor of mathematical statistics. I am the collation officer to Niger local government for the Bayelsa 2019 governorship election. Please listen very carefully. Number of registered voters in our LGA 92,546, 92,546, 92,546. Number of accredited voters in that LGA, namely local government, 85103, 85103, 55,103. The various parties got the following votes. The various parties, please, got the following votes. I'm going to read the way it appeared there, and I'm following it sequentially. You have to get it and get it clearly. Thank you very much. Party A got 251. 261. Party A got 261. Party AAC got 41. Party AAC got 48. 21. Party AC. Party AC. Got 23. 2-3. I'm going to renounce that so I can continue. From the answer, okay. Can I continue, sir? Thank you very much. I told you that the AC got 23, 2-3. Party A, D, got 60. Party ADP got 5-0. 5-0. Party AGAP. Party AGAP got 0 votes. Got 0-0. Party ANC. Party ANC 6 votes. Party ANC got 0 votes. 6 votes. Party APA. Party APA got 0 seats. Party APA also got 0 seats. Party APC. Party APC got 8-3, 0-4-1. 8-3, 0-4-1. 83,041. 83,041. Party ACGA Africa. Party
Of course, I will be stupid to come and say I've congratulated somebody who robbed me of my victory.
Okay, sir. Now, what message would you want to tell Kogi people?
Well, it's unfortunate that this has happened to them. This is a continuity of the suffering in the land that we wanted to come to change. But they should not despair. We are going to pursue this thing to the logical conclusion within the confines of the law of this country. And even though there's no hope anywhere in Nigeria now, from the judiciary to the legislature, everything has been commandeered by the executive in this country. And we hope, natural judiciary should be the hope of the common man, but we hope we'll get justice from there, because it's about the masses, not me, not the party. And if they genuinely voted for me as they did, and their hopes were dashed by writing and coining results that will make them get victory, it's quite unfortunate. They should be patient. I wish them well. I know the suffering will continue to get bad under this very government. And we hope at the end of the day we'll get justice. And then the government they voted for will come to serve them.
So what would you talk about the massive deployment of security personnel? Even at that, they were still pockets of violence everywhere.
The violence was aided by the security personnel. They were escorting thugs to cause mayhem in areas of strength, especially the policemen, working in conjunction with APC thugs to disrupt election where they are not strong, to give them room for violence so that they can go and write the results they've so written. So they've achieved their aim. Where is the democracy? When you see a police commissioner coming to the collation center in my local government from last night to this morning, what was his mission there? Where is the democracy when a helicopter from the police force will come and pour tear gas on my supporters in Ganaja, knowing full well that is one of my strongest holds? Where is the democracy here? If they tear gas them away from there, they won't be to get to wishes so that they can still continue to be in government for the next 4 years in an already over-pauperized state.
So it's settled now that you did not issue that statement?
At all.
Okay, sir. If you have 60 seconds to talk to Nigerians, what will you tell them?
They should be patient. They should tolerate the kind of government we have in place now that makes sure all the tenets of democracy are sunken, that they are not working. One day democracy will come to Nigeria. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no democracy in Nigeria as at now.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. I wish you well.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Unfortunately, the connection to Mr. Nweli isn't through yet. When that is possible, we'll get back in touch with him. Let's go back to Bayelsa. What I like about the Bayelsa situation is that they have an interpreter on the screen. I like how Nigeria is doing its best to be more and more inclusive of our neighbors, our friends, our brothers and sisters who are differently able. So it's quite the encouraging thing to see. I like that. I like that very much. Now we're back in Yenagoa, and hopefully we'll start to get audio. We're currently watching on Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3.
Fresh, happy. Got 0 votes. Got 0 votes. GPN got 0 votes also. GPN got 0 votes. HDP got 0 votes also. KP got 0 votes. KP got 0 votes. LM got 61 votes. LM 61 votes. LP got 6 votes. 06 votes. LP. MMN got 0 votes. 0 votes. MPN got 04 votes. MPN got 4 votes. NCP got 3 votes. 03 votes. NDLP got 0 votes. 0 votes. And NNPP got 02 votes. 02 votes. And NPP 02 votes.
Sorry, start from 45 LP, please.
LP, thank you, sir. LP 06, 6 votes, 6. LP. Then the next is MNN. MNN. 0 votes. 0 votes. The next is MPN. MPN. 04 votes. The next is, the next is NCP. NCP 03. 03. The next is NTLP 00. 00. NTLP 00. The next is NNPP 02. 02. The next NPC. NPC. NPC, can I go on? 03. The next is NRM. NRM 01. 01. The next is NUP. NUP 01. 01. NUP. The next is PDM. 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 PDM 02. 02.
Yes, Sandra, good afternoon or good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening. Very loud and clear.
Yes.
Don't forget that you can watch this on Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3. Philip, what did Mr. Wada say?
Well, there was a post that was put out on social media about him congratulating or conceding defeat to the governor
conceding
of Kogi
defeat
State.
to the governor of Kogi State. So what he told me that the post was not, sent by him, that he did not, endorse that post. He did not write that statement that is fake. He's saying he cannot issue such statement that how can he issue a statement like that when the elections he knew was rigged, that there were violence, things did not go well, they're trying to steal the mandates that Kogi people gave him, that the results were concocted, and he was asking Kogi people to be, resolute, that he's going to contest the results, that victory will be theirs in the end.
Okay. Now, what's happening at the Collation Center? What else can you tell us about what's happening at the Collation Center?
The results, the collation is still ongoing, as at the time they went on break, on recess. They had collected, I think, 16, and they have 5. There are 21 local government areas. There are 6 to go. They collected 15. There are 6 to go. As I speak, they were already doing one before I left. I got wind that Engineer Musa Wada, the PDP governorship candidate for Kogi State, was about to address journalists. I was so lucky to get him because he had finished talking when he was leaving, and he had to stop because he saw Nigeria Info, because he recognized us and realized the importance of the station. So he had to stop to grant me the interview. So the collation of results is still ongoing, and let's hope that we will be able to conclude the collation, and the final results will be announced before 8 p.m. today.
The race?
Hopefully.
Is Mr. Wada still in the race?
He said he does not accept the results so far announced, that he won the election, that everything that has been announced so far was concocted against the wishes of Kogi people. So whatever statement that has been put out on social media about him conceding defeat to Governor Yahaya Bello, that is fake, that he did not write the statement. That's
Philip
what he
Mooney,
said.
thank you so much for talking to us. We'll get back in touch to see what else we can find out.
Thank you, dear.
Chief Aboforibo.
Thank you, dear.
This is why there's a lot of argument in the Senate and in the House of Representatives about bills to stop fake news, eh?
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
What I'll say is this. For as long as there's been politics in Nigeria, there has been fake announcements by a politician's opponent to say, oh, he has withdrawn from the race, he has resigned, he's actually from Cameroon, all manner of things.
Or he's Jubril.
All manner of things have been said about politicians. So I will never be one to say that this is a reason why, a justification for trying to ban or hang people, or not hang people, but create new rules against fake news. We already have rules against libel, slander, and all of that. Those ones should be employed. But this is a very, it's quite an episode. So the man did not even say anything, and somebody has on his behalf
written a long speech. I have printed in front of me right now. I have a speech purportedly belonging to the man, and he's saying I did not put that out. Interesting times. All right, let's get back to Yenagoa, where collation is still happening, and we have Joshua Rogers in the collation center and hearing the results for us. You're listening to 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Sandra Ezekwesili.
01. 01. The next is UPP. 30 votes. 13 votes. 13 votes. The last but not the least. ZLP 33 votes. 33 votes. Total valid vote for this election. 84620. 84620. 84,620. Invalid votes. 302. 302. Total vote cast. Total vote cast. 84922. 84922. I want to thank this body, please. Before I complete the thank, I must also thank God today that one of our vehicles ran into the swamp. And that vehicle is still in the swamp. But I'm grateful that we didn't lose any life. I'm very grateful. Very good. Thank God. I just felt I should make it known. Two of them are our staff in University of Benin. They got saved us.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you. There is, in fact, conclude, sir.
Yeah.
There is a letter of protest. I don't know, yes, by one of the parties that contested this election, and I don't know whether to read. I told him to copy the reg and also copy the EO. I am only a collation officer. It's what came from the field I have to collect. And the field people told me to check all that they are supposed to check, and it was so. I want to thank all of you for this wonderful audience and for this wonderful privilege. Thank you very much. Well, as far as I know, sir, somebody asked whether there were cancellations. I asked all my respective ROA collation officers, and they told me that as far as the result they got from the POs, they didn't get any cancellation. So that is why I also am not presenting any cancellation in this presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Not the use best. Are you the original prof?
Making sure that we know as soon as we can who's leading and who's losing. We've got too few local governments in so far in Bayelsa, and as soon as we know more, you're going to know more as well. We'd like to take your thoughts. Give us a call 01277 0993, 01277 1993, 01277 2993, and 01277 3993. Don't forget that this conversation is continuing with Agogo Obo and Rotimi Sankore, who will continue this conversation from 6 p.m. today. So be here when they get here to talk to you. Joshua Rogers, can we talk to you now?
Yes, let's talk.
Okay, so it's been quite the process, huh?
Yeah, it's quite a process. We are waiting for this minute and
How many local governments so far?
2 local government areas for now.
Wow. And we have how many local governments in Bayelsa?
8 local government areas in Bayelsa, so we're expecting 6 more.
Or 6 more. Do we think it's going to come today, or are we expecting that this will carry over into tomorrow?
Well, our covered elections here, we have had collation up to 12 midnight, so if we continue to 12 midnight, I think we can cover everything, if they are all ready.
Okay. Joshua Rogers, thank you so much. We'll get back in touch as soon as it's time for more. Do we know when they'll continue?
Yeah, I think they want to rectify some issues about Sagbama, because I'm seeing the collation officer who announced the Sagbama results taking back the seat. I don't know if there's a clarification or he wants to present on behalf of another local government.
I see. Okay. Well,
but this collation started with an argument where the PDP agent was trying to raise the issues of course restraining the APC from participating in the election. The argument was countered by the APC agent, and then the other parties who did not contest the election but adopted either the APC or the PDP, or having interest in either the APC or the PDP, had to also get up in either in defense or in support of one of those political parties that they have made it look like in this collation center. But that situation, the APC agent also said that this is not where to reject the results. Results have been rejected at the tribunal, or you go to court and clarify any issue. For now, they are collating results. That's why they are moving on. That is the agent of the Accord Party raising some issues.
Yeah. How was that resolved?
And here I'm saying I'm sorry, and I was so confused. That would say I was so violent. Election was peaceful, free, and fair. That is the record. But before then, there was violence before the election. The big election, I was so violent. That is no more aware.
complaint from a member government area where the result was announced just now, and then no cancellation was made. That was violent. He felt that that result was not a true reflection of what happened in member on Saturday.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have Alpha.
Another.
And I want to connect the outside when work went on. Because the kind of cyber people who take the fight. Thank you. And as I'm concerned, my agent before there was no violence. No violence. It was really very acceptable. Thank you.
So he just answered what the accord agent said. So you can see that the other political parties who as candidates, some of them are around, they are the candidate of the party, they are the party chairman in the state, they are also the agent here. So they either support the PDP or they support the ACC.
I see. Now, that initial issue that you raised, how was it resolved? The initial issue about the APC and the PDP?
Okay, it was resolved here that at this point they cannot reject any results. Results can either be rejected at the tribunal.
I see.
Yeah, so they are collecting the results as they were brought in.
And we'll be giving us this type of results. I think we will not waste time in example. So, thank you.
This is the PDP agent about to speak right now.
Okay.
Very, very, very interested holy grammar. This is holy grammar because from material that human beings, people really make their body. And all of us come here and look for a book of doesn't give us a good you go have just to do other submissions and that you didn't see all that you did on board. And that people were presenting waiting for people to vote. They were not here. There was nobody who had them. So it was there. And we know at the end of the day, thank you.
So that is always the situation. They will raise the issue, but I agree that the issues will be resolved at the tribunal. That is the PDP agent. And the APC agent.
I am completely, I was here in the election, so I am an eye witness. Fine, some important things of problems before in the campaign. But what we have today is the relation to the election. And during the election, the national commissioner, because you know the high the national commissioner of INEC and other officials, one to they witness the distribution of material both on the government and assembly. The commissioner of police and other senior security chiefs were acknowledged there was no single option. There was no single instance of kidnapping and taking of material. So, I wonder what my friend is bringing this back to a constituency of like that. Which of the constituencies? I want to join my colleagues, who commended the effort, the industrial manner in which your other staff performed in the government area. And I commend them for future and further assignments.
So that is the drama here. When it favors you, you will hear something like this. So there are some other parties that are protesting that they have to speak. The returning officer is speaking right now.
Okay.
So the returning officer is just verifying with the collation officer from Tagbama, who was the first to announce the results. I think he had some issues with the figures on his paper, so he had to go ratify it, and then it's changed to the results right now.
I have to say, of course, for you who's listening to the show, you can watch online, watch on Facebook, watch the Collation Center for yourself. Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3, YouTube, Nigeria Info FM.
That is Dr. Moses from University of Benin, meeting his results to the returning officer, who is Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin. That's the result of Tagbama local government area.
Okay.
By INEC.
So there are two local government areas that have proposed to submit requests, and we want to next, which is Kuma local government area. We have the local government production officer. We have the local government production officer. And please, the electoral officer, please. Please give us space to pass. Thank you.
The female collation officer from Kolokuma. To step, the collation officers will have to come forward with the electoral officer from that local government area. One is a permanent staff. The EO is a permanent staff, while the collation officer is usually a ad hoc staff.
Members of the committee. My name is Professor Elizabeth Omotunde Ogochukwu. I'm a lecturer with the University of Benin. I'm a counseling psychologist.
Yes, Kolokuma local government.
The results of Kolokuma and Okobi. Kolokuma.
Kogi State, where we have total results so far at 347,184 for the APC. The PDP has polled so far 146,271 votes, and the SDP has polled 7,900 votes. The PDP is going to need to get almost 200,000 votes from the remaining 4 local government areas to defeat the APC. The question now becomes, can they? Especially when you have their candidates saying it's unfortunate that this has happened to the people of Kogi. This result is a continuity of the suffering in the land which we have come to change. He also said, I'll be stupid to congratulate somebody who robbed me of my victory. It's a real scam and not a reflection of the wishes of the people. He also said that Nigerians should be patient. He said that there's no democracy in Nigeria. And you can watch that interview with Musa Wada on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as Instagram, Nigeria Info FM. I am Sandra Ezekwesili. We've got 17 more minutes to go, and then it's over to Agogo Obo and Rotimi Sankare. Let's take you back to Bayelsa.
2, 5, 4, 6, 2. 5, 4, 6.
Then the total number of valid votes was 24587. 24587. The rejected vote was 698. 698. Total votes cast was 25285. 25285. Yes. I now go into the voting proper as we voted. The A party had 69 votes. AAC had 27. A 69. 69. AAC 27. 27. AD 3. AD 3. ADP 19. ADP 19. AGAP 4. AGAP 4. ANP 3. ANP 3. APA 30. APA 30. APC 8934. ABC 8934. APGA 11. APGA 11. APN 1. APN 1. APP 0. APP 0. ASD 0. ASD 0. D 0. DAP 0. CAP 0. CNP 1. CNP 1. DA 3. DA 3. DCC 4. DCC 4. DCE 1 5. DCE RENH 6. 6. Fresh 6. EPN 0. EPN 0. HDP 1. HDP 1. KP 1 1. KP 1 1. LM 2. LM 2. LP 2. LP 2. NNN 0. NNN 0. NPN 0. NPN 0. NCT 5. NCT 5. NDLP 1. NDLP 1. NNPP 0. NNPP 0. NDC 1 3. NDC 1 3. NRN 0. NRN 0. NUE 2. NUE 2. CDN 2 4. CDN 2 4. CDE 1 5 3 0. CDE 1 5 3 6 0. CDA 9. CDA 9. CDE 8. CDE 8. ERP 1 0. ERP 1 0. SNC 1. SNC 1. UDP 1. UDP 1. UD 1. UD 1. UDP 1. UDP 1. UPN 0. UPN 0. UPE 1. UPE 1. ZLP. UDP 1. UDP. Yes, sir. 1. 1. The UP. UP 1. 1. UPN 0. UPN 0. UPP 1. UPP 1. And the very last one is ZLP 2. ZLP 7. 24587. Rejected vote. Rejected vote. 698. 698. Total vote cast. 25285. Total vote cast. 25285. That's all. But I have translation from Kayama Olobiri, RA code 5. And only one polling unit was affected.
All right, we've got results from Kolokuma Opokuma local government area. APC polled 8,934 votes and the PDP polled 15,360 votes. We're keeping our eye on Bayelsa. Joshua Rogers is still there, and this coverage will continue with Agogo Obol and Rotimi Sankare. So make sure you're here for when they join our election studios and continue the coverage. Chief Oboforibo has been quite gracious, hanging around, waiting for questions that we may have, providing insight to the conversation. Chief, thank you so much for your time.
It was my pleasure, Sandra.
I'm glad it's a Sunday, so you don't have to be in traffic.
Yes.
Join me tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. That's when my show starts. Hard Facts. That's what it's called. We're going to talk about the elections, obviously, but we're also going to do other things like Checkpoint, The Big Hard Fact, and Conversations with Rufai. Rufai Useni is here on Nigeria Info every Monday and Tuesday from 6:15. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili, and we can talk online. Don't forget to keep watching on Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3.
2 states, 2 destinies, 2 jobs, and the huge weight of expectation from over 1 million voters will help define the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And Nigeria Info will be right there through the campaign, election day, and the announcement of results. Join Nigeria Info's 360 coverage of the polls from 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th of November, and Sunday, 17th of November. Our team of reporters will provide live interviews and feeds on radio and social media platforms, all in real time. Nigeria Info, your #1 news, talk, and sports station.